For this episode of Let's Talk Jinx, patch 13.7 notes a bit late, but here we go. There are no changes to Jinx. This is the MSI patch, so it looks like going into MSI, Jinx won't be nerfed anymore, so that's actually pretty great. We might get to see her at MSI if that kind of hypes you up, depending who makes it there. If the AD carries want to play Jinx, if there's some Jinx players there, that could be cool. That's Jinx related. But the only really changes in here that could possibly affect Jinx would be changes to other champions in the bottom lane, like Alistar, a tanky support champion. His base armor and health is being increased, as a matter of fact. He's supposed to be like a beefy tank right now when it comes to supports, and he's not as beefy as he could be, so they're changing that with the base armor going up by 3 and the base health going up by 15. And so as he gets tankier, he's going to have a little bit better base stats under him, which could be kind of nice. Annie, meanwhile, and this is actually support Annie being changed, which is why I'm mentioning this, because they say Annie has been burning her enemies in the bot lane, so here we go. The E cooldown is actually being increased, and the shield values being decreased. So the Molten Shield, they made a change to Annie. I know she's not been meta for a long time, so maybe some people, especially if you're a newer player, Annie, they made a change. It wasn't always a thing where you could put the Molten Shield on allies. It used to be just yourself and Tibbers when Tibbers was spawned. But now they did the go-ahead a couple, I want to say like a year or two ago even, where they can do that on allies, and that makes it a problematic thing sometimes when she's strong, because then the shield amount's really, really good, and then I think there's reflection damage on it too. So they're changing that. Kallista's an interesting one, because Kallista has been in pro play quite a bit, but really I've seen her more as a support champion than anything else, so that she could pull her AD carry out of danger if something happens, if the AD carry Jhin gets jumped. But the attack damage growth is being increased and the passive ceremony duration decreased. Kallista now forced to channel. So what it seems like they're doing, if I'm reading this correctly, is basically being like, hey, she's been a pro play, but she's not in her correct role, or the role we'd like her to be in the most, which is AD carry. She seems kind of weak in that one. And Riot's okay with champions being in multiple roles, don't get me wrong, but they would prefer if, as long as they're the strongest in their preferred role that they were made for, unless their name is Vi, who was originally made as a top laner that just gravitated towards the jungle, and they were okay with that. So that being said, the attack damage growth we said is being increased and stuff like that. So we'll see how this pans out, because it's going up from 3.5 to 3.75, almost a whole 0.5, which when it's called growth on top of building items and stuff, that can be interesting. Thresh's Q cooldown is being refunded on hit decrease. So if you didn't know, the Q cooldown is refunded. Basically, from 3 seconds, it's going down to 2 seconds, and they gave Thresh a lot of changes recently too. And he's another one of those beefier supports, engaged supports, and of course heading towards something like MSI, where more people are probably gonna watch MSI than they do watch like week-to-week pro play in any region really. The exciting playmaker champions, like there's a Lee Sin change we didn't go over, because you're probably not going to be playing against Lee Sin as Jinx in the bottom lane, or you're probably not going to be jungling Jinx against Lee Sin in the jungle. But you know, the playmakers are coming out, so Thresh is getting some changes. He's one of the classic, you know, duos with Jinx as well. We'll go over Jinx changes with these champions too. I'm doing it a little different this time, where we'll go over the changes first and then talk about Jinx and how it could relate to Jinx after. But that's an interesting one. Basically, more hooks, more death sentences, and of course Zeri, right? Because why not? Health growth decreased, passive shield absorption decreased, R AD scaling decreased. That's an interesting one. Too long, didn't read. That's nice and all, not reading all that. So then let's start with how this affects Jinx. If you're playing with an Alistar, it's kind of nice, because Alistar's whole thing is like going in with the combo, the W and the Q. You know, with the pulverize, knock people up, you use the flame chompers, etc. That's always how it works with engaged supports. That's a running thing. Flame chompers, have those ready. But the thing about this one is too, he's also just going to be a beefier frontline, not even just in lane. Like the thing about having tank supports in the meta, in the laning phase, it makes it harder to kill them than maybe an enchanter support, depending, because enchanter supports have healings and usually knockaways and stuff. But it also means in team fights, you have an extra front line, or maybe someone else in the back line to help you stay protected, right? Like maybe if you have a front line, you know, Maokai, who's super beefy in the front, maybe Alistar is in the back with you, chilling to make sure that Zed, that ran around on the enemy team to try and assassinate you, runs into him first. Or if he still tries to jump you anyway, he's there to headbutt and pulverize him away or something, so he can't finish his full combo on his death mark. Something like that, you know what I mean? Like, there's always the argument that Jinx is supposed to, like, you know, enchanters better, but personally it depends on what the enemy team has. I sometimes like having beefier people, because it makes it hard to kill me if they're good at their job, and it's also hard to kill them because they're beefy. Now if you're playing against this, what this means is you're probably going to have more of a chance killing the enemy AD carry than the enemy support. But you also could possibly bait the Headbutt Pulverize combo. It is an AoE ability, so I say possibly, so I wouldn't recommend this necessarily unless you're, timing it really well. But if you're in the minion wave, sometimes if the Alistar's not good enough, he'll Headbutt Pulverize like a minion, and then he also won't even Headbutt Pulverize correctly, so he'll like Headbutt a minion away, and then you're walking away as he's coming in, so when he goes to Pulverize, he just hits your minions, and then it's all on cooldown, and now you can punish him a little bit. Punishing tankier supports is even more important than Enchanter supports, because people forget Alistar can't Headbutt Pulverize like Thresh can't hook, every 2 seconds. There is a cooldown on those. You might want to look them up if you don't know them, because when you learn those and you learn like Blitzcrank's hooks on a 22-second cooldown and he missed his hook, you can punish him for like at least a good couple seconds, maybe turn to the rocket form, lay into him for like a little bit, and then go back to farming, and then just kind of chunk away the health slowly but surely, and make them have to then make questionable decisions of, do I keep engaging or not, because I'm going to get low and eventually I will die. Annie is a little bit different, of course. They're engaged. They have a stun, of course, single target or the AoE, or Tibbers once they get, their ultimate, they stun and then have Tibbers summon on somebody. But Annie tends to also be, even with the shield, a lot squishier. So Annie's, a mage. Mages like to poke. So if you're playing with this as Jinx, what you probably want to wait for when it comes to things like Flame Choppers is really Tibbers, like post 6, is when you're probably going to be looking for straight up all ends. Pre 6, she will protect you while you farm though, which is going to be good because you're a late game hyper carry. And going against Annie, just make sure when you see that purple under her, or like her health bar, because it means the stun's up, play safe. Play into the minions if you have to, if you're getting like flanked or something, so maybe they misclick possibly. But at the same time, like pre-6 is kind of the same thing, where you don't have to watch out for Tibbers, but you got to watch out for that stun, because if they have something like a Lee Sin coming for you, you're gonna die. But if not, it's great. So there's no way you're probably playing with a Kalista. She's probably moving out of the support role with these changes. But playing against Kalista is also interesting because Kalista likes to hop around. And what beats hopping around? Getting your foot caught in a Flame Chomper. My answer to a lot of these is just Flame Chompers, and I feel bad sometimes because it feels like it's just copy and paste answers. But like, it really does work if you know how to play around those correctly, right? Like Thresh, engage support. Flame Chompers. That's kind of how it works. Playing against a Thresh, Threshers like to kind of walk up into your face, flay you, and then hook you. So if you see him running at you, don't go side to side, because there's a good chance he's not trying to throw his hook at you. There's a good chance he actually wants to get to you and flay you to guarantee the hook. So you need to just kind of keep running. Now, if you see him do the motion to wind up and do the hook, then by all means go sideways. But there's a good chance if the Thresh is anything worth his salt, he's coming up to your face in melee range to flay you, and you need to actually just run from him, even if it's in a straight line. And then Zeri, I feel like this is more pro play aimed, so if you're a pro player watching this video, first of all, thanks, but also, Zeri, we're still going to see Zeri. Zeri's that kind of champion that comes along, and it happens at least once a year in any role, that we're just going to keep seeing them. They're going to keep getting nerfed or whatever. I can't give you good advice on this, basically is what I'm saying. Honorable mention to, it looks like Yuumi is getting a skin. So you might see Yuumi in your games again, even though Yuumi's dead, so you probably won't see Yuumi in your games. But if you do, it's because people want to play this new Yuumi skin that's coming out. The Cats vs. Dogs theme for April Fools is continuing, and that's going to be all from this video from me. So thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell notification, the actual subscribe button. In terms of an AD carry tier list, I don't really see Zeri being all that good. If you're not a pro player, like a lot of these problems are pro play aimed. So unless you're a Zeri main, I wouldn't say pick up Zeri. I say Jinx is actually really fine right now. I say Caitlyn is probably going to be looked at more than Jinx in terms of the bench. So now's the time to play Jinx more so. Things like Kalista will be interesting because I don't think Kalista was necessarily garbage tier or anything like that. But I do think them actually aiming buffs at her, AD carry will make her a bit better than she was. Focusing that same way Ashe was focused on that, moving her out of support to AD carry, things like that probably will be good. I also just like Jinx this patch because of Thresh. So things like Caitlyn and Jinx and even Tristana for that matter, with something like a Thresh can be really nightmaric. The same way that Morgana will probably be coming in as a counter to Thresh because of the Black Shield. And all of those AD carries do work with Morgana too, even more so because Morgana is about protecting people with things like the Black Shield, even though Morgana can also poke because they're a mage. So it kind of goes hand in hand with, oh, if this is meta, this is probably going to come into the meta to counter this, and this actually kind of works well with some of these, you want to scale up, hyper-scaling AD carries. Not that they don't work, of course, with like Lucian, of course. Lucian, Thresh, despite the lore, actually work pretty well together as well. So you might see some Lucians popping up or some lane bullies popping up because they want to get kills. And what helps you get kills even more than an engaged support? Jesus, I guess, but basically engaged supports. So that being said, that is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I'm going to get you out of here, and have a nice day.